All right. All right, Dr. Medeiros, it's all yours.
Okay, great. Hello, welcome everyone to the June 3rd Opportunity Youth Academy Governance Council meeting. I'm Dr. Jessica Bonduras, the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and I'll be chairing this meeting today. First, call to order. Can we start with introductions and roll call?
I'm Phil Morales, Director of Opportunity Youth Academy.
I'm Joelle Hanson, CTE Coordinator, Santa Clara County Office of Education.
Maris Brooks, Director of Workforce Development and Organizational Culture at the SCCOE.
I'm Courtney Portel, Collaborative Initiatives Manager with Kids in Common.
Great, thank you. Number 2, public comments of persons desiring to address the council. Mr. Morales, do we have any public comments tonight?
I will check here. There are no public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Informational items. So at this time, Mr. Morales will be presenting the LCAP and answering any questions related to the LCAP.
Thank you, Dr. Banderas. I appreciate that. The last time we met, we were able to look at the LCAP, the details of the LCAP. We also looked at the annual update, excuse me, and the SIPSA plan. And so the request for this particular meeting was to talk about some questions, or if there were some questions, follow-up questions from that meeting. And so Joelle did email some questions that I believe I could address. But before we do that, are there any other questions that you would like me to add to the list of questions, or shall we wait as we kind of move through the questions? We can just kind of discuss them, or any thoughts about that? I don't know if you wanted me to go through the entire LCAP again. Was that something you needed me to do? Joelle?
Now, why don't we start with answering the questions that were presented, okay. And then you would just give everybody the opportunity to take a moment to ask their own questions, should they have any, or some follow-ups for the questions that were already presented.
Okay, I could certainly do that. I will just ask the question and then attempt to answer it the best I can, and then we could certainly have a discussion about that. So the first was in goal 1, actions provide a generic baseline, all OYA students average, ? But the 3-year outcome does not provide a specific measured outcome. For example, what percentage of students will be at 9th grade reading in which grades? To answer this, what I want to say is that the cohort student data, so it's difficult to collect that information out of Renaissance Star as a cohort data because we are really an independent study program. So we do measure our students as one group, and we do it quarterly. And then we provide really that STAR data we provide it to teachers so they do an individual assessment and work with the students to develop some of those academic plans. It's just been very difficult, and that's probably the reason why in that outcome, there is not a specific 10%, 20%, or 30%, whatever that percentage is, of a grade level will score 9th grade level on a particular reading or math assessment. So that's why it's written that way. I think prior to that, and Joelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I did have a percentage there. I think it was like 9th grade, and it was like 2%. And after kind of talking with Dr. Amos about it, that doesn't make sense, because again, how do you 2% of what group that we don't have? It's not a consistent cohort. So it was, let's just keep it at a 9th grade school-wide measurement and not so much as a cohort measurement. Does that make sense, or are there any thoughts behind that, Joelle?
No, that makes sense. I guess my whole question with the questions that I have was just to make sure that the goals are measurable in terms of being able to guide the actions that you have underneath the goals, and whether or not that are tied to funding, whether or not those actions are making an impact on the goals that you are trying to achieve.
Right.
And so when I was looking at it, I still am not quite sure. I don't know, maybe it's not the right metrics to use, but so how I'm trying to figure out how these baseline metrics are going to help drive data decisions on whether or not you're achieving the desired outcome. So is it that, all enrolled students will, or is it a certain percentage of students will be at ninth? I guess I'm trying to figure out the metrics that you're using and what
Yes.
is it that you eventually want tied to sort of where the students are at, or some of the, the things that you're saying that you want to do. And maybe because you're saying it's to develop a well-rounded academic program that leads to graduation and prepares them for college and career. So if they're leaving OYA with a high school degree, diploma, at a ninth grade proficiency in reading, I'm not sure if that's aligned with what you're trying to say your goal is for college and career. But
Right.
maybe, I don't know. And so I was just trying to figure out, like, how can you analyze this as you look at your LCAP from year to year? How is that helping your teachers making, maybe it's in the action, maybe you want to be a little bit more specific in the actions. I just was trying to figure out, I was just trying to connect it. And with the sole purpose of ensuring that you have a good goal set that you can measure and be able to help students achieve what you want them to achieve. That's all I was asking.
No, and I think that makes perfect sense. And this has always been kind of a struggle, particularly with these metrics when we're trying to create metrics that measure cohort, that measure school-wide, because again, it's an independent study program. So a lot of it is really built down into this kind of that individual, that these assessments really help the teacher develop an academic plan for an individual students, and it really helps them then modify their instruction or the intervention for that particular student. But yes, we need to think about, okay, but how does it help us, or how do we use these measurements to help us school-wide? Are there larger interventions or school-wide interventions that we could use to help particular groups of students, like our EL students or our foster youth or our low income? But I went back into Renaissance to look at, okay, in Renaissance, is there an EL cohort? Do they identify that way when they go into Renaissance math and reading? And they don't.
No, you'd have to do that you'd have to query or just know who the kids are.
Correct.
And I don't know if you're using Aries. Are you using Aries as your, I don't know if you're in the student SIS database for Aries. When you are, when they set up attendance, not attendance, the grade book, if you're using grade book in Aries,
No,
you can, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That's the kind of the dilemma we kind of face as being an independent study program, is that grade book in Aries doesn't align with our program the way we want it to. And we've asked Aries to help us to create something.
They have an analytics program that you should be able, it depends on how much you're paying, but I won't get into that, because there is an analytics program that you can do that will pull up reports. There is querying that you can do, and mostly on, as in, Aries, you probably know Aries from Melpita's time, but it's well, and then also so do you have Data Zone?
We use Data Zone, but only for attendance. They don't pull in our assessment data in Data Zone.
Oh, okay. Because they were, when I talked to Nabil in Data Zone, just talking about data in general, he did say that they can do Renaissance, and that they can do the big things, the big assessments.
Right.
So, anyway.
And again, I think even so, the big change for us next year is actually doing the quarterly assessment. So doing it 4 times a year, and then meeting at certain times of the year to review those assessments school-wide, and then try to and then teachers would use those assessment scores to work with students individually. What we're finding, though, is that students will start and stop with us at any point. So a
Mhm.
student that would take that first quarter, the assessment in July, will maybe not take it in that before that first quarter rather, or they have graduated, or they've stopped, or they dropped out. I mean, there's a lot of, so being able to say this group at the, in July, and try to track that group to that first quarter becomes really challenging. And then it's, okay, well, how true is then that overall assessment, or the percentage of increase? It's been really challenging to come up with that. So I think it's still a measurement that it's a work in progress, but I would like to see in what ways could Renaissance Star help us really drill down on some outcomes or measurements that would follow kind of a cohort pattern.
Yeah, it's going to be the burden is going to be on you all with the in and out of the students on what you're going to set up. And I know that goes more into a single site plan, and what you're going to set up to follow the student success in terms of, is it going to be, a percentage of increase per student?
Yeah.
Based on where they're at,
Yeah.
So
which I think we will get down to that, because there are in the plan, there's no cost to it, but in the plan there is the individual learning. It's called the advisory meetings that we've created, which is now a course in Schoology. So students will have to enroll in this LCP that we call it. It's in there that we would be able to say, okay, you scored in your, RenStar reading at this grade level, at this percentage close to proficiency. So at the next time you test, this is what we're looking for. This is what we're trying to accomplish at that next quarter meeting. But again, those are down into very individual plans, not something that we would be able to pull together and create a full picture of kind of overall improvement for the school.
Can we move on to some of the other questions and see if
sure. And I think there was, again, and I think in that same, and you've brought it up, Joelle, there are other, for example, I think you had brought up the CASP, and again, is there a percentage? Is it, although we do test the 11th graders, but with that particular cohort, we have students that there's a very low participation rate for that particular test, but we also have students that would start, a day before they have to, an 11th grader that would start a day before they have to take the CASP. So again, we're working on students coming in. It's not that they've been with us for a while. We can't really assess how well they're doing. How are we preparing them for that CASP test? So that's where we're at with those outcomes. So you asked a question about the SARC, and how is that used? So part of the standards that we have to report out is high quality teachers and school environment, or not school environment, but the school locations, the buildings, how good they are they, well done. So the SARC is what we use as the evidence to support that. I put it in that goal 1 because it's rigorous and relevant curriculum. And I thought, well, it makes sense to indicate that as part of not just the curriculum, but it's kind of everything. You have to have the right teacher, you have to have the right setting. So that's why it's there. But I could certainly move that to school, that measurement that would support a different goal. Goal 2, you have ALPAC at 20% growth by year 3. But what constitutes growth? Is it a percent of the student increase is proficient? So I went back and did look at that. And what I added is that we would add a 20% of students will show growth by showing 1 level of proficiency for that particular outcome. And that is because in 18-19 data, we had 47% of our EL students show 1 level of proficiency in the ALPAC. So it made sense to actually just make sure that we were saying it has to show growth, but somewhere. in one level of proficiency is what we determine. Does that make sense?
So it would read 20% of students will show growth on one level of the LPAC.
At-
Proficiency, growth, show proficiency, not growth, because growth is a
Right.
point A to point B.
Right. So it would be show at least one level of proficiency.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, at least one level. We had students that showed much more than that, that actually that grew across levels, two levels. But for the most part, 47% of our students showed growth or showed at least one level of proficiency. So I made that change.
Oh, you did?
I did make that change in the LCAP. Correct.
Oh, okay.
There was a year 3U say it only won 3% increase in reclassification. Well, yeah. So the reason why I kind of had it so low is because of the other assessments that they need to meet to be reclassed. So even though they're showing great growth on the LPAC, they're having a really difficult time to meet proficiency or standard in RenStar and CASP, and then that teacher recommendation, which is why I had that percentage so low. I didn't want to put it too high that we weren't going to meet that particular outcome, which is why I had it. I think I had it down to 1% per year, 3 years, and 3% over 3 years.
Then would you say that maybe the goal is to actually concentrate on pieces of the proficiency that they're missing? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is
The
the,
local assessments.
yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And so in that, I think this is related to, So goal 2, specifically for ELs, there are action items in there that would support that, supporting them in the RenStar, supporting them in really more professional development for teachers to help them become more proficient in those other areas. Those are some of the actions that would help with them accomplishing this outcome.
So do you know why they're not accomplishing reclassification? Is this specifically the SBAC?
It's the SBAC, it's the RenStar, which is a local measure according to our master plan, according to that master EL plan.
Mhm.
It's the teacher recommendations that our teachers are not doing, and I think that they don't know how at this point.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was gonna ask, yeah.
yeah. So
That usually is the case.
Mhm.
So we are working with Rhonda Beasley, and so she's going to work with me and the staff to develop kind of a guideline on how do you write that recommendation, what are you looking for, and then how do you support our students in some of those local assessments so that they are meeting proficiency and they're meeting those standards.
Did you have that in there in the actions? I didn't see that. Because that would be an important action that I think you'd want to highlight, is that you're, working with Rhonda Beasley on the professional, because if that's one of the barriers, then, right? Wouldn't that be like,
Right.
I don't know.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Did I not put that in there? I can add it. It might be in a different, let's see, actions through professional development areas. It's IOSA, professional development. You know what? It's not in here. I will add it.
Yeah, you have UDL.
I'll add it in there.
You have
I'll add it as an
different
action
but you don't
5.
have specific.
It's an IOSA with
Yeah.
it's really with what is it? Accountability, assessment accountability, and district support. And so we are working specifically with them on EL development.
Cool.
So I'll add that in an action. Post-secondary planning. Yeah, so that's actually a total of 300 over 3 years, not 300 a year. So, and I could kind of work this out a little more. So we graduate every year anywhere from 80 to 100 students per year. And so that's why that baseline is 100. So every year, that graduating class should have a post-secondary plan.
Mhm.
And if that's happening every year over 3 years, it should be approximately 300 students that would have that secondary plan. We got close this year, but our target is 100 per year, which would be that, like I said, that graduating class. And then you had a question about A through G, baseline is 0. So this particular matrix is based on eligibility. So A through G students are become eligible, are
Yeah.
A through G eligible. This is always a hard one for us because our students don't take the 220 track. They're on the 200 track. So they are not eligible just in terms of the A through G track that they have to accomplish. We had one student this year actually graduate at 220, but she's not A through G eligible because some of the courses that she took, the A through G courses prior to us, she didn't earn a C or better. So she'd have to go back and retake those courses.
But
And
it's
so
not 220.
that's why this one is always so difficult for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say 220
Oh,
is
I
A through G eligibility. That's your graduation.
can't hear you.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, go ahead. That was me. Sorry.
that's fine. Oh, I just was like, 220 isn't A through G eligibility. That's your graduation. I mean, A through G eligibility is 3 years of 4 years of English, three. Yeah, I don't know if it's two, but anyways, that,
What-
so what you're just trying to do is just get, because what you put for the desired outcome is offer A through G courses to eligible students.
Yeah. Yeah,
No.
I know.
I don't know
Go
what
ahead.
that means.
Well, I mean, that's basically without having to put the outcome is going to be X number of students or X percentage will be A through G eligible. It is that we offer the courses, but I don't want to say it's always going to be zero but that's kind of the reality. I could put a percentage there that a percentage of our students will become A through G eligible if they accomplish these things. But I just not sure how to create an outcome that.
I guess I'm wondering why you're putting it there then, if you think that A through G courses or college prep course. I'm trying to figure out why you put it there, if it's really not a, I mean.
It's required in the LCAP that we have to put this matrix in the LCAP.
The A
So,
through G, oh, okay.
Yeah, same with the advanced placement. It's required that we have to put that that's a matrix in the LCAP that we have to indicate.
Would it be more realistic to give it a percentage of, that they will have X percent of A through G eligibility? In other words, of all of the requirements, you're trying to get to it, like to get something measurable so you can show growth. Because right now you're not gonna be able to show growth, right? If your goal is to get them more prepared for college and career, and you would like to have more students work towards A through G eligibility, would it be, I don't know, I'm just asking, I'm holding a meeting, sorry.
No, you're not. No, Joelle, don't stop.
No, but I wonder if there's a different way to say it where you offer A through G approved courses.
Correct.
I'm wondering if there's a goal around increasing the amount of A through G courses that are offered. Does that answer the metrics, or do you have to write? Doesn't, okay.
No, because all of our courses are A through G. I think what it is that how do our students become eligible? Even if they take those courses and let's say they earn a D in the course, they've taken an A through G course, but it doesn't make them eligible at the end of their time with us. Right. So what and that's the problem with that particular matrix. But let me try to work it out and see what I can come up with other than we offer it. I think you're right. I think there needs to be some outcome that is measurable, or at least gives us kind of a point, a goal that we could try to meet.
Yeah, and it goes back to why the data is the way it is, because it could be, there's so many variables of why a kid gets, less than a C in an A through G course. Is it attendance? Is it, academic gaps? Is it subjective grading? Is it, there's all different kinds of ways. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I just know how to ask questions.
No, I appreciate it. So I'll let me see if I can kind of work this through and ask a few people to look at it and help and see what outcomes we can come up with. And then the last question you had was. 1 second,
Phil. Courtney, did you have something?
Oh, I'm sorry, Courtney.
Thank you. What is the exit survey, and how does that help in preparation for post-secondary education?
Is that
it's the last metric of goal 3, participation in exit survey. What's the exit survey?
Oh, right. So that is the exit survey that we would give. So that would actually be for the graduates. So what we're trying to do is find out from them, where are you going? What college you're going to? What trade school you're going to? What supports do you think you're going to need? When we gather that information, then it helps us look at that post, what we call that plus year under that, under the back on track model,
Mhm,
that post or that plus 1 year, it
mhm.
helps us develop that and look at, okay, what should that look like? What supports do we need to put in place for that plus 1 year? Resources, partnerships. So that's why that exit survey is so important for us.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's helpful. Thank you.
And then the last is on, the base, student attendance, 70% student attendance. And 70% is, yeah. So our attendance is based on work production. It's not based on seat time. So really what that's measuring is the number of students that are actually producing work, that then we define it as attendance. 70% is really kind of our 100% mark when you think about how much ADA we can collect or our total enrollment. It's 70%. So that's kind of the mark that we try to hit. I would love to get 90% attendance, even though we're not going to really collect revenue on that additional percentage over 70. But yes, a higher attendance means more work production, means more that they're accomplishing more. And then just to clarify, is there a gap between subcategories? Are you talking about subgroups? So is there a
Yeah.
difference between the foster youth, the EL? Is that what you're asking? I haven't pulled data or looked at attendance in that way, but I can certainly do that and see if Aries can, if I could extract that from Aries and see what that looks like. But I don't have an answer to that at this point.
Well, because it might feed into your goal for improving EL if
Yeah.
it looks like ELs are disproportionately truant from,
Great point.
yeah.
Great
Just a-
point. Right. Okay, 3. Did I miss anything? Did I answer all your questions,
I think
Joelle?
there's a question about the EL parent participation
Oh,
and to maybe do it proportional to the enrollment so that it's not, because what if one year you have like 3 EL students and another year you have 10, instead of having 2 or 3 parents by the end of 3 years participating in ELAC, it would just be a percentage increase that's proportionate to the ELs that are enrolled at the time.
okay. No,
You know
now
what
I
I mean? So
understand
that
that.
you wouldn't be, you wouldn't look like you did less because there just happens to be less EL students that year. So you
Right.
tie the percentage increase to the percentage of enrollment at the time.
Okay.
That
I
makes
think that makes sense. But what I'll do is because we roll in our EL, so our LAC, our ELAC and our school site council is all in one meeting. So we separate it out. So the one parent that is our parent rep for school site council is also our parent for ELAC. So what I could do is maybe I'll break out 2 different metrics, one specifically for our ELAC group and put the percentage as you described it, and then also have a separate one for school site council and parent engagement. I think that might be the best way to do that. Does that make sense?
I just want, make sure you don't,
No,
ding
that's-
yourself unnecessarily.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I could certainly make that change. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Are there any other questions about LPAC? Oh, I'm getting so confused. LCAP that I can answer, or clarifications, concerns?
So first of all, I'm underprepared for today. I haven't looked at this
That's
most
okay.
recent version.
Mhm.
So I may have questions to send you in an email. So when is the last, like, when do you need to have, when are you sending this off?
Well, so there's still the public hearing. So that's June 10th. So there's still a whole opportunity to still ask questions. June 24th is when it gets adopted. So Dr. Dewan at a board meeting will adopt the LCAP. However, keep in mind, Courtney, that this is still a working document. So what's great about this is that for next year, we'll do our LCAP Then we'll do an analysis, and there'll be an opportunity to modify goals, action items. So there's always, it just doesn't mean that this will be like, once it's done, we can't do anything different about it. That's not the purpose of the LCAB. It really
Okay.
is just a document to help guide us and make changes as we need to go along. But certainly feel free to, email me and say, what does this mean, Phil? Or but I would also encourage you to participate in the public hearing as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. That's all I got.
No dance?
No
Damaris,
dance.
Did you have any, did you have anything, Damaris, or you?
No. All right. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Phil.
everybody. So for our informational item, the next agenda item is adjournment.
Right.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I motion for adjournment.
I second.
Okay. It was
Great.
wonderful meeting you all, and thank you for being here for our meeting. And the next meeting is scheduled for when?
Oh, that's a great, we have to probably, so what I will do is ask Blanca to send out some meeting dates for next year. I think this is our last meeting for this year. And then we will send out some meeting dates. I think we also, the next time we meet, we need to look at terms and see if, so to look at terms, and I can send you the terms, the bylaws, so we can take a look at those, so that at our first meeting next year, we can at that point decide if we need to appoint or elect new council members, and then accept the dates for that, the meeting dates for next year. Does that sound okay?
And when did you say the public hearing is for the?
It's June 10th.
Okay.
And I'll be sure to make sure that all of you get the agenda and all the documents that we send to Dr. Dewan, which is posting tomorrow, late tomorrow. I'll make sure you get all of that same package so that you all can have it before June 10th and be able to ask questions as well.
Great.
Prior
Thank you.
to that. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
Phil.
everyone. Have a good rest of
Welcome.
the week.
Have a good
Bye,
one.
everyone.
Bye-bye.